My name is Barbara McTaggart. I did a PhD looking at swampy meadow systems in the Central Tablelands of New South Wales. Swampy, so you sort of get the idea that it's wet, and meadow, getting the idea that it's got meadow plants. The trees are actually on the slopes. The main part, or the valley floor of the swamp, is generally treeless and is covered with some of these more grasses and sedges and the like. Importantly, the reason why it's necessary to have these systems protected is because they're under constant threat. You know, we always sort of think of threats as grazing, clearing, people intentionally draining these systems. So I actually sort of think a threat is ignorance, and you can't blame people for that, but people seeing these systems as creeks and not recognising what they were and what they should be.
These swamps provide critical habitat for a whole range of species, particularly small birds, things like reed warblers. But what they do is have a really massive impact on the catchment downstream. They're like a giant sponge at the top of your catchment. They hold a huge volume of water and they slowly release it after a rainfall event.
These cuts have been occurring for the last 200 years in this landscape, so they're everywhere. You see eroded gullies wherever you look. This is one that's capable of being fixed. You call this a key point, and if we don't address this key point, the whole system will unravel. You've only got to pick a cotton thread to unravel a garment, and that's really what it's like. These structures will stop water cascading down here and causing this very deep pool. So the water will come down here, it'll lose its velocity here, and it'll drop sediment in there, and it'll naturally fill this pool up a bit more, and then the vegetation here will stop it getting any worse. So it's all about vegetation, but we've just put a little bit of intervention in here to help nature along, and it's all natural materials.
All this built up mass of peat under there that acts as a sponge. Once you lose that, you lose the hydration for this forest, and you're creating issues right the way downstream for the whole catchment.
Once you actually have a gully system, you're effectively lowering the water table. Once you lower the water table, you're lowering the water table on your lower slopes. And so you're draining the whole system, so of course you're going to lose species. You're going to create a drier landscape, which affects biodiversity across the board.
So this project's been funded by government initiative, and they've been able to put the money through Central Tablelands Local Land Services to allow us to implement this project as the Central West Council's Environment and Waterways Alliance. The project was really instigated by Lisa Payton from Neville Landcare. She came to me and said, we've got to do something about this. The Environment and Waterways Alliance pulled together all of the various groups: Forestry Corporation, New South Wales, Central Tablelands Local Land Services, as well as Neville Landcare, and we also brought in Cowra Council because we're in their region, and we even had fisheries officer out here to make sure that everything we're doing is okay. We're working within all our permits, and we're really collaborating well to pull this project together on the back of some really good funding.
And this head cut, if it's allowed to continue, it'll go all the way down, it'll take the swamp with it. If we can fix these three spots, we reckon we'll stabilise this system and we'll stop any further degradation.
So the site behind me is an example of what can happen if we don't protect these sites, and if the work isn't done, and you end up with an unusable landscape that will end up, washing away, and a landholder will find unproductive. What the landholders don't realise is the impact that it will have on their properties, and the amount of soil that will be taken away through the water that flows through the eroded landscape, and also the weeds that will come up in that landscape. So there's really no biodiversity that can be supported in a landscape like this. We'd encourage every small local community, or large one for that matter, to contact these people if they see these problems starting to arise in the landscape, or if they identify another location that's like Neville and worthwhile protecting.
I am really impressed. I cannot believe that this is where I last saw this massive great headcut and this massively deep plunge pool with all these scour holes, you know, going into the bank. It's following the natural form of the land really well. It's energising the water coming down. I can envisage that in a very short period of time that a lot of plants are going to self-seed and that, and it really just sort of follows the natural form of the land. It's actually really quite transformative.
Skillset Landworks were engaged as an expert contractor to do the works here. It's a really highly sensitive area, and we needed to make sure that the people doing the work knew what they were doing, because this sort of work, it can actually result in more harm than good if it's done incorrectly. So brilliant to have local contractors that can do the work to a standard we need. A lot of people probably don't understand the value of swamps like this, but this is one of the very few remaining in our region. And what we've seen over the last couple of 100 years is that most of these have been drained or cleared for various reasons, and it has a huge impact on the downstream health of the waterways.
It's the services it provides to the whole landscape, not just the diversity of plants and animals, but all the microbes and the genetic diversity.